Good morning, folks. We're back out at Dad's, and I got another lantern to work on out here today, and this is one you've seen in a video on my channel before. This is my birthday lantern, my June of 1979. Can't get it out of there, come on. June of 1979, model 275 Coleman. This is the one that my wife got me for Christmas. I think it was 2 years ago. I don't think it was last year. I think it was the year before last. Pretty positive it was 2 years ago. Maybe not. Maybe it was just last Christmas. Either way, she bought me this for Christmas. It's the one that we got, and when we got it, the globe was broken. So the guy refunded us 50 bucks off of the price of it to replace the globe, but I just glued the globe back together because I couldn't find another picket fence globe for it, so I just glued it back together. I've got a replacement globe at home that doesn't have the picket fence on it, but I just glued this one back together and used it. But after I burned this lantern a couple of times, the fuel valve started leaking by, which is a common problem on these 275s. Once they went to a 275A, I think in 1981, they put a different fuel valve in it that took care of that problem. The older ones, often when the valve fails, when you shut the lantern off, it doesn't shut the fuel off and the lantern just stays burning. So the only way to get it to go out then is to just let it burn all the fuel out of it until it finally goes out. So I'm going to replace the fuel valve on this. The fuel valve on these is a schrader valve. And for those of you who are thinking schrader valve, that sounds familiar, I ought to know what that is. A schrader valve is the valve that's inside the valve stem on a tire. That's a schrader valve, and that is what the fuel valve is inside of this lantern. So I've been told. I don't know how you get it out of there or how you replace it. All I know is that you have to replace it with a schrader valve that has a fuel, I don't want to say fuel proof, but like a fuel resistant O-ring on it. So we're going to tear it apart. I have no clue. I mean, I have a clue where it's at. It's got to be behind that knob somewhere. So we're going to tear this thing down and see if we can find that valve and see if we can replace it. I bought these valves online, I think, I don't even know, 1, 2, 6 of them in there for, I think, less than 10 bucks delivered. So they're not pricey to get them. Let's see here. Just got to figure out how you get it apart. I would jump up and shut the furnace off, but it's kind of chilly in here. I think I'm going to let it go and warm up in here. It's not that loud. You should still be able to hear me. So first things first, going to pull the generator out. This generator's kind of crusty anyway. I don't remember if I've had this one out. I made a video of getting this lantern going, but honestly I don't remember if I had to pull the generator on it or not. Maybe I should have went back and watched that video before I brought this out here. I also don't know for sure if this takes the same generator as like a 220 or 228, or if it's a different generator in these. I'll loosen my fuel cap because the tip cleaner works when you turn the knob on this, so I need to turn the fuel knob on far enough to get the tip cleaner eccentric to come up to get the generator out of there. So just loosen the fuel cap a little bit so that it didn't leak any fuel out. It looks like the same generator as a 220, 228. The only difference would be maybe if it's a different length, because being a 2-burner mantle or 2-mantle lantern, it should have same size tip on it and everything. Oh, that's bigger than my customized wrench. I got my other customized wrench here. We did a lot of grinding on that to get it to fit into some of the lanterns that we have to take apart with it. 11/16 wrench. I think you get that nut off of there. It looks like the whole cage will lift up off of the air tube. Leo, get out. Looks like the whole cage will lift up off of the air tube once we get this nut off of here. Little different design. Well, it would if that nut was lined up, but that nut, I can't lift this up high enough to turn it to get it to line up with the opening in there. That's a convenient design feature. And that's larger than 11/16. Let's see if I can get it to turn with an adjustable wrench. Things wanting to turn. Well, that's not very convenient. What the heck? Boy, if I could get it up just a little higher, you'd be able to turn that, but it does not want to move. It's loose to wiggle back and forth, but too tight to actually turn it. That's weird. Boy, I wish I could just get that to lift off there and just see what's underneath there better before I fight it much more. There we go. I did get it just far enough. Well, I didn't think that through. How in the hell? I can't pick that up off of there anyway. I gotta slide the whole damn thing up. Okay, well, my faith in being able to save these mantles is going away pretty quickly, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get these out of the way. I got plenty of mantles. Leo will probably end up eating those, but I know those aren't the radioactive ones, so. Well, now I can at least look underneath here and see what I'm dealing with here. But this, when I put a wrench on here, it turns just a little bit in each direction, then gets tight. So what in the heck? Oh, I see what is going on here. Hold on. This is going to be a pain to try to get the camera in here to see this. That doesn't make any sense to me. When this is turning, let me grab a light here so that we can get a little extra light in there. That won't stick through the rubber mat. Oh, the town's testing their storm sirens. I was like, what's that noise in the background? When this is turning, you can see the bottom of the air tube right down here turns and then hits against a little protrusion that comes out to the side there. So how is that supposed to come apart? I'm going to pause the camera and stare at this for a few minutes and see if I can figure out what the heck is going on here. Alright, after I stared at it for a minute, I got it figured out here. This jam nut is seized to this stamped steel air tube. So when I'm turning the jam nut, the air tube is turning with it. The nut should be spinning freely on the air tube. So I'm going to get our little torch and heat that up just a little bit. And then I'll have Dad hold the lantern down firm against the rubber mat on the table so that I can use the ball of my hand and kind of whack the wrench a couple times, see if we can break it loose here. I don't need this big a torch, but it's right there, so.
Yep, it's handy.
Heat this nut up a little bit and see if we can get it to break loose from the stamped steel air tube that goes through the middle of it. So I wonder if that's got like a compression fitting down in there that, I don't know, the jam nut going down on there isn't even threaded down into where it's tight. So if I did have the generator out of this, I obviously didn't have it this far apart before. I don't know if the camera would be able to pick this up or not, but there is, when I'm heating it up here, there's stuff bubbling up out of the top of that jam nut there, so I'll give it a little more. I'll give it a little more heat on this side, and then I'll have Dad hold the fount down tight against the tabletop so that I can give this a couple whacks and see if that'll break loose. Uh-oh.
It's working.
Well, I wasn't expecting that. You can obviously see that the fuel valve's leaking by. Yeah, this over here. Oh, well, I mean, I have to hit it. It's loose now.
Yep. And it's hot.
Yeah.
Don't grab it with your fingers.
I don't remember who told the joke the one time about the kid at the blacksmith shop.
Oh, yeah.
Kid that was at the blacksmith shop every day, and he was always bothering the blacksmith, and the blacksmith would always tell him, you're gonna end up hurting yourself here. And every day the kid would show back up again and keep bugging him, and one day the blacksmith had made a horseshoe and set it down, and it had cooled down enough that it wasn't glowing orange anymore, but it was still real hot, and the kid came over there and picked up the horseshoe and dropped it right away. And the blacksmith said to him, like, see, I told you ended up hurting yourself, didn't you? And the kid looked at the blacksmith and said, nope, just doesn't take me long to look at a horseshoe.
Nobody knows what a horseshoe is anymore.
I kind of feel like that was that old guy that you worked on his truck that had the topper for a camper that told that, but I'm not positive. But... okay, we got that apart. There's, I think, a rubber washer in there? No, it's just a bunch of crud buildup there. But obviously there, that part's supposed to turn on there, so this slot in there goes down over the little keyway basically in there to keep this indexed right in there. It just was seized up. I'll set that part over on the metal part of the bench so I don't melt my rubber mat. Now I got to figure out how we're going to get the rest of this apart, because that schrader valve's got to be right back in here somewhere. So I just got to figure out how it's going to come apart. Figured out how that part came apart.
Yeah.
But
seems to be a few bugs and stuff under there.
yeah, they like living in there. Or actually, they don't live. They like being dead in there. Okay. Well, it looks like these don't have a screw through the end of the knob, but it looks like a little spring-loaded keeper right here. Yep, so you just push the spring part in and it slides right off, but if you have it on there and pull on it, it won't come off because the keeper binds. So just got to get in at the back of that to pop it off of there. Then it looks like all this is held together with a tiny, need something to point down in there with. All this appears, come on camera, focus, to be held in there by that tiny little roll pin right there. So I got to see if I can get that out of there. Definitely not the best design Coleman ever came up with, in my opinion, that's for sure. Well, I got it apart a little farther, but I broke something inside of it. I was trying to, this nut would thread out and it was backing out until everything in here was binding up. So it was bound up against this little roll pin going through there. I couldn't turn that center knob anymore. Couldn't get anything to move. This stem does not just come out when you thread all that out. So I tried turning that and something snapped, and now the little tip cleaner eccentric does not move up and down anymore. I don't know if that schrader valve threads in from the bottom, goes up in there. I don't know, but at this point, the only thing I can do is see if I can just get the whole valve assembly out of the fount so that I can look at that, because this won't come up out of here. This won't come out of there. That nut's threaded out all the way. Since I broke whatever was in there that was turning the eccentric, you can spin and spin and spin that stem and it doesn't go anywhere. So I'm gonna see if I can get the base, or get the valve to thread out of the base. Actually, there's flats on that side. Get on from over there. Nothing's convenient on this, that's for sure. Might have to get the lantern vise out here, but that means I gotta move everything that's on the tabletop. Well, we just clamped a lantern vise on the other corner of the table, and we got the valve assembly threaded out of there. Looks like this whole piece might thread out of the bottom, and then we can look up in there and see what's in there. I don't know for sure. See if that'll thread out of there. Everything's coming apart hard on this thing. Okay, well that's turning, so that's encouraging, but it's not loosening up very quickly. So I ended up taking this over to the vise and clamping the flats on here in the vise because I was starting to round them off with the wrench. Everything's coming apart so much harder than I think it should on this, but let's finish threading that apart now and see if that schrader valve is somewhere up in this valve assembly holding everything together. Oh no. Well heck, the schrader valve's right there. The schrader valve is in the pickup tube, threaded in there. That's the little stem that comes out the top. I don't know, that doesn't look exactly like the new one, that's for sure. I don't know. So then what's up in here? Oh, after you do that, yeah, I definitely screwed that up. So here's the piece that broke off. It was on the end of this valve stem. So what is still holding that valve stem in there? Is that valve stem not removable? How could it have to be? They had to put it in there somehow.
I think there'd be a packing in there or something, and a jam nut.
Okay. It'll come out when the whole packing comes out. The packing was what was stuck and was holding it in there. And well,
so now we need to find a new...
Knowing what I know now,
yeah,
I guess I might be looking for another 275 lantern that's junk that I can take all these parts out of. Okay folks, I started recording this video on December 10th. Today's December 19th. I found a parts lantern. It actually was a whole lantern. Did not have a globe in it, but I bought a whole lantern. Some of that's going to be a future video, so I'm not going to get too carried away, but I went ahead and tore it down to the fount. And this old fount is crusty. It's been sitting somewhere for quite a while. But went ahead and tore down this part. You watched me tear the old one apart. You watched me tear the valve apart completely wrong and break it. So on this one, we're going to take it apart the correct way and hopefully not break it.
But maybe.
So we need to thread, let's get the camera in here a little bit closer. We need to thread this whole assembly, near the mud dauberness on there, out of the fount in one piece, because like we saw in the last one, we finally got it that far apart. The schrader valve is in the pickup tube coming down out of there. When you turn this valve, it turns the tip cleaner eccentric, and then after that tip cleaner eccentric comes up, the whole body of the valve goes down and pushes that schrader valve open. So we need to thread the whole thing out of there.
Is this one bad?
I hope so.
After all this, huh?
Now I don't know if the schrader valve's any good in this, but they fail in these on a regular basis anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and replace it. Yeah, the other one, after I took this piece apart and broke it, you could get right on there with a wrench, but you can't get on there that way with this one. It's got that metal piece in the way that you can't get out of there. Huh. This one, well, that's interesting. This is, my other one's 1979. This one is a 5 of 76. This, instead of that little roll pin that was in there, has a clip. Huh.
Well, that would be better.
Well, I think I can get that out of the way then I can get right on there. Because that was the problem with the other one. You couldn't get that out of there.
Had a sleeve pressed on it or something, didn't
Yeah,
it?
I had a piece that was slid back on there, and then instead of a clip, it had a roll pin. This just has a little clip. I can just use my little can opener on my pocket knife. What are those kind of clips called?
Yeah.
I can't think of the name, but somebody will know in the comments what.
It's a C-clip.
If I think of it, it's just called a C-clip?
Yep.
Okay. Alright, and that just pops off of there, same way the other one did. Will that let that? Heck yeah, that's way better.
Yeah.
That's 1,000 times better. You can get that right out of the way. We can clean that up before we put it back on the other one. So yeah, the other one, I guess the piece that still wouldn't come off on the other one even after we drilled that out was this plate back here. It slides on and slides into a groove. So that still can't come off, but that doesn't need to come off of there. There, now we can get right on this flat with a wrench here. Wonder how tight this is. Might have to get the lantern vise back out. No, come on. Let's see, I'd rather not screw around and do all that again. Oh, there we go, it's turning. That other one was ridiculous. Oh, shit. Dumping fuel out, apparently it's got a little bit of fuel in it. Smells like stinky old Coleman fuel, but at least it's not rotten gasoline. That's better, because if it was rotten gasoline, then my pickup tube and stuff might be in bad shape down in there. Okay, let's spin that out of there. Yeah, we will dump that gas out before we put this up. Pickup tube looks nice and clean. I'm glad that it didn't have rotten pump gas in it. Yeah, then to dump this gas out of here, since we got that off of there now, we can, yeah, there's not very much. We can just go like this. Set that off to the side. Yeah, that's a May of 76, and my other one's a June of 79, and they apparently made a few little changes to that valve in that time. That's before the, I think in 1980 was when the, 80 or 81 was when they changed it to a 275A that had a better schrader valve in it that didn't go bad. So the 275As usually don't have the issues that these have. I wonder if the last one of these I had to put in the vise to get the stem to thread off of there, but this one came apart quite a bit easier. Maybe it'll just, yep, it's turning. It's tight, but it's turning. Let me get a little wrench here. Then I can hold this with my adjustable wrench. Oh goodness, well, it broke loose. It turned a little bit, but I will admit I don't get very much leverage with a 2-inch long wrench, so we'll just take this over to the vise real quick. There we go, I got it threaded out far enough now that I should be able to get this wrench on it. It started to turn, but then it got really dang tight. I don't know what the deal is with that, but it's spinning out of there now. And there's the schrader valve. Now that schrader valve, it does not look exactly like the one that I got to replace it. I think I started to show that in the last video. And I got online and did some research. Got on the Coleman Facebook group and was reading some old posts, and a few people said that they just buy the ones from oldcolemanparts.com because they've already sorted it out and know exactly which ones are correct. Well, I already had bought these, so I didn't go back and buy more of them, but I went and looked, and the ones that they show on oldcolemanparts.com, I'll try to get this in there close so you can see it. But this one has, the stem is just straight and doesn't have like a little ball on the end of the stem. The replacement one, I don't know if that's going to focus on it good or not, but it has like a little flat on the end of the stem. But I went back to my order when I ordered these, and this is the same parts number as the ones that they sell at Old Coleman Parts, so I think it ought to work. So I'm going to try this one. It's the same part number that they show, and the picture looks the same as the one they show. And we got the little tool that threads down on there. You've probably all taken a tire valve stem out before. Thread that out of there. Oh goodness, it turned like 2 turns, then got really tight. I don't want to break this off in there. I broke off the one on the other one. Alright, I'm going to get some WD-40 to put on here because I do not want to break this off in there.
It's not there, is it?
It's right here.
Oh, okay.
I already broke off the other one that I had. So I really don't want to do this because I can't use the other pickup tube unless I get the other broken off stem out of there. So I guess the furnace is going to run, but it's not that terribly loud. I guess that happens in winter time. Alright, I'm going to work this back and forth a few times. I really don't want to break that schrader valve off in there. Okay, it got tight for a couple turns, then it loosened back up. Let's get it out. Oh no, it came apart. God dang it, that's the same thing the other one did. This top half came apart, came off of there, and the bottom half is still stuck in there. Hold this up there, and I don't know if that'll focus better, but that stem coming out the top of there is the rest of this schrader valve. So we need to get the rest of the body of this schrader valve out of there. The threaded part all came out. So all the threads came out of there, and the bottom part, I think, it just seated down in there. And
yeah, I think it is. I put some more like WD in there and see if we can get a hold of it.
I don't know why that comes apart like that, but I think I'm gonna heat this up just a little bit around there and then get a pair of vice grips on that stem and see if it'll pop out of there.
Good idea.
That's okay. We'll heat this up a little bit, get a little pair of vice grips and grab a hold of that and see if we can get that out of there. It's hot enough to WD-40 and it's burning. It's gotta be tighter than that. There we go. There we go.
Hey!
There we go. That's all the old schrader valve out of there. Or I hope all of it.
Yep, that should be.
Let's shut that off.
That looks like it.
Yeah, looks like all of it came out of there. This thing got hot.
Yeah, I'll
Oh,
bet.
Jesus. Okay, that's what the other piece is in there. I could see something else down in there. Yeah, it's not too bad. But this is the needle that goes down, because this still works just like on a 220 or 228. It plugs and unplugs the hole in the bottom so that you start it on vapors and then go to liquid fuel. Yeah, that's hot. Let me see. Oh, yeah, I can see daylight through here, no problem at all. That's nice and clean. This have a spring. The spring didn't come out of there, so there's spring still down in there. Let's see. I would think there's got to be a spring in there. Yeah, I can see it. It just doesn't want to come out. I'm not going to force it though. If it stays in there and this, yeah, it is still spring loaded against it and moves up and down. All right, we'll try to get the camera down here and show this. I took that Schrader valve that broke apart and I pressed the two pieces of it back together, laid it out here and laid this, the blue seal one is the new one, laid them out side by side and they look pretty identical for lengthwise, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. Hopefully not. Like I said, it was the same part number that was on the one from old Coleman parts, so I would think it's correct, but who knows. If it's not correct, I put it together and it won't work right, at least now we know how to take it apart and change it out for a correct one if I have to order one from old Coleman parts. So alright, this is nice and cool now. I can hold on to it, no problem. I am going to put a little bit of WD-40 back in there and then thread that back in just so that it's got a little lubrication while it's going back together.
Make sure you put the right one back in.
Yep. Yeah, that even is against that little spring-loaded piece, so it's pushing it back up. Right here. And we're gonna put that in there. Thread it down in. I'm not gonna get carried away. Just go till it's snug. And we're dripping that WD-40 out the bottom in there. Now, let's see if this will focus again when I push that Schrader valve down. That little needle ought to come out the end, and it certainly does. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but it's working the way it's supposed to, so hopefully that is good. Now the rest of this valve assembly that I took off of that replacement lantern, it passes air through it. I guess it won't make very much difference when it opens and closes because that's the part that actually opens and closes, but it does pass air through it. So I think that's good. Doesn't taste good. There we go. So we need to make sure that this is in the correct position. Should be that way. Put that back up in there. I'm going to put a little WD-40 on that too. That way this threaded out of there really hard. So not going to hurt to have a little bit of lube on everything as it goes back together. Get all the WD-40 haters fired up here. There's lots of people that love to hate on WD-40, so. And I'll admit, it's not the best penetrating oil ever, but for stuff like this, it's perfectly fine. Alright, that's all the tighter I'm going to put that. I don't think it needs to be torqued down to a certain number of feet-pounds or something. I think it just needs to be snug. Now, that part is protruding from the bottom, and click this knob back on here for a second so that I can turn it. Here, hold this paper for me, Dad, and I'll try to get that where they can see it here, but when this turns, it should go all the way up in there, and it sure did. So I feel like all that's working just the way it's supposed to. Just take this knob back off. I'll just put this back on the crusty lantern, the one that was on my lantern I'll reuse. I'll reuse as much of the parts from my original lantern that my wife bought me as I can, and then put all the spare parts back on the other lantern, and we'll put it out and know that that one's just for parts. So, guess what we got before we thread that back in there and get it in the way.
What are you looking for?
I was going to use the glass cleaner, but I don't see it, but I'll just give it a little spritz of carb cleaner. It's something to knock the grime off the top of this before I thread everything back in there. Yeah, I'll put a link in the description to the video where I got this. It was last year at Christmas time. My wife bought it for me for Christmas. So I'll throw a link down in the description to when I initially got this going, and I burned it 3 or 4 times and it was fine, and then all of a sudden one time I shut it off and it just kept right on going, which is exactly what happens when those schrader valves fail. You can't get the lantern shut down then. So I need to go one more full turn because that's not tight enough the way it is now. So I need to get it one complete turn and get it back to where the stem is going to be right above the sticker on the front of it. Ooh, man. Oh, we need another hand, Dad. Just a hair more. I want to go just a... That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. The knob will be pretty much centered up right up above the sticker then. Alrighty. Now, might as well clean all this actually. Yeah, we'll use this one. It was off of this valve. Wipe all this down, get the loose debris off of it. Now, I don't know if that goes that way or that way. Guy probably should have paid attention to that. Nope, it'll only go one way. That little claw foot looking area is larger than that one, so it'll only go on one direction. Then we gotta slide that back, and I gotta get this little C-clip back in here. That ought to be fun. I'll be able to bring this thing out of here and shoot it across the shop. Look for it for 9.5 hours. Okay, after a little more fiddling around there, I got that C-clip in the channel where it's supposed to be. Now, when you open this up, it'll positively click in place, so you hear it right there is low, and then you can turn the knob more to get it up to full brightness. And back around that way, so it clicks into the little detents that it's supposed to go in. This piece doesn't really fit in there tight. It just kind of floats around in there. There's nothing that holds it tightly in place. Alright, let's start putting the rest of this old girl back together. A little bend in the collar that was on it, but these are aluminum, so they're pretty lightweight, and I'm not super concerned about it. I'm just gonna round it back out just a little bit. This lantern looks like it's been on fire at some point in the past. There definitely is some scorching on there, some scorching on the bottom of that. It's certainly flared up pretty bad at some point in its lifetime. I assume that the little information about the fuel cap should be centered up just about right above the fuel cap there. And that goes down on there. I'm going to get my little jam nut and just put it finger tight, and then we'll thread the burner assembly back in there. Drop my burner back down in there. Before, this wasn't even tight. You could wiggle the burner around, so. There we go. Now. Since we're this far, I'm going to pull the needle out of the generator and just look through it. I can see daylight all the way through there, and I can see that the old spring is still inside of there. So we know that's okay. Let's see here. This is the knob that was original to this lantern, so we'll slide it on there and turn this so that the little eccentric is up to get the generator stuck back in there. Clip the little clip on the end of the generator and then turn that, and that'll trap it back in there. Drop the generator down, snug it up. We're just about back together here. Get some mantles on here, get them burned in, and then we'll fuel this thing up. See if it's going to light up and work properly after all this. I certainly hope so. That's not the right size for that. I've got the wrench that fits that right here. That's still loose because I just threaded that finger tight, so I'll just go down till it doesn't wiggle easily anymore. They don't have to be torqued down. I think I'll actually go ahead and fuel it first, then we'll put the mantles on and burn them in. That's pretty full. That'll do. We'll definitely get this one. If it works, we'll get it out at home tonight and get a shot of it in the dark like I always do at home. It'll be out there in the cold and dark tonight. It's unfortunately winter weather has showed up full force here. Sometime, yeah, right around there, 20th or 21st. That calendar. Oh yeah, 21st. So that's Saturday. This Saturday. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and pump that up too. Might as well. And then I don't have to pump it up after the new mantles are on there and burned in. Hopefully this works like brand new. It would light before, it just wouldn't shut back off. Alright, I'll turn the camera back on after I have these tied on there. Okay, mantles are tied on. Get these strings clipped off of here. Throw those on the floor for Dad to sweep up next week.
Well, I sure need to do it.
The heck, I just broke a fingernail. That's a bad deal. Good thing I got clippers right here. How do I manage to break a fingernail tying on mantles? Alright, that's empty now. This lighter doesn't have a refill hole either. And it's getting awfully low.
We got about 10 more to replace it with.
There we go. Let those set for just a minute. And we're just about ready to see if this thing's gonna light up and burn right. This is the vent nut that was already on this lantern, but we'll use it also. Alright, let's see what happens. That's the light position. It's blowing the flame down, so I know it's passing some air. I can't hear very well with the other lanterns lit in here.
Takes a while to get everything filled up.
Well, what the heck? Turn it back that way to turn the tip cleaner. There we go. When you shut this back to the off position, it runs the tip cleaner. I might have to turn it on and off a couple times. There we go. I kind of forgot about that, and I was going to say turn the tip cleaner, but you have to go clear back to the off position and back on to run the tip cleaner on this. But it's burning. Let's see if I can run the tip cleaner one more time without actually going out. Now, the question will be, is it going to go out when I turn it off? Because that's what happens when those schrader valves fail. And it sure looks like it is. I'm not going to let it go clear out. I'll turn it back on here. But before, it just stayed full brightness even when you shut it off.
Yep, it's working.
It's weird because when you go through, the tip cleaner comes up, so you think it's going to go out, and then you go all the way to the off position and it burns the rest of the fuel out of there. So they're kind of odd, but it definitely was burning down. Now we'll go ahead and I might as well clean this glass. I already got everything right here, so
Be careful.
yeah, this glass is super glued back together. And it doesn't get very clean. I do remember that. It's been scorched at some point when I cleaned it before at home. It didn't get like on the picket fence part, that stuff is just burned in there. It doesn't want to come clean, but we'll at least get it a little better here. And that's probably why it cracked, because the crack goes up to where it's scorched there, so it probably was already stressed the glass in that area, but it got broke during shipping. I told that story in the first half of this video. Spin that around. We'll put my Coleman logo in the front right above the knob. Let's see, the vent has to line up with these notches so that the bale can fit back in there. It's right there, I can see light through it. The bale goes in there. Uh-oh. Gotta run the tip cleaner again. There we go. Must have shook a chunk of something loose when that clipped down there. There we go. Nuts back on the top. It's all back together. So there you go. That's how to incorrectly try to change a schrader valve and break your lantern, and then how to correctly fix it and actually change a schrader valve. We'll get a little shot of this at home tonight in the dark, like I do at the end of all my videos. Well, good afternoon, folks. I'm back at home. This is several days after I recorded the first part of this video, well, first part and second part of this video out of my dad's shop. And on the video out the shop, you saw that we got the lantern put back together. The schrader valve works fine. I've had no issues with that, but I have had issues with the lantern. I brought it home that night. I was going to get a shot of it running in the dark. I started it up about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At about 4 o'clock, we left to go to kids' basketball games. We got back home at like 7 o'clock that night, and I had 2 lanterns burning out here, and this one was out. So I thought, well, maybe it's out of fuel. I came and shook it. It still had a little slosh of fuel in it. I went to turn the knob, and it wouldn't turn. So the next day I took it out to Dad's shop, took it back apart. When I got it apart, it was like the generator had seized up in it, and when I was trying to turn the knob, the generator couldn't move. So I grabbed another old generator that I had here in my parts box, threw it in there, put it together, worked perfect, lit it up there at the shop, it was fine. Brought it home, lit it up, let it run for 3 or 4 hours, came out, knob wouldn't turn again. And the generator is all messed up. I know that this camera won't focus on it, so I took a picture of it with my cell phone, and I'll show you what it's doing. So I've got to figure out what's going on and why this thing is destroying the generators in it. Once I get that figured out, I'll post some pictures on the Facebook group, talk to some of my friends that are lantern collectors, and we'll figure out what's going on. Maybe I'll do a quick shorts video replacing that and showing this thing running again, but I'm gonna have to figure out why. It's almost like it's melting the stem that goes up the inside of the generator, which makes no sense. So anyhow, I'm not gonna get a shot of this running in the dark, unfortunately, on this video that's already running very long. So thanks for watching, folks. Like I always say, we appreciate each and every view. If you enjoy the content we're putting out and you want to help us out, the best way you can do that at this point is just to let the ads play when they come up. Another good way to help out is give the video a like, share the video, leave a comment, and obviously if you're not subscribed already, hit the subscribe button. All that stuff definitely does help out. And thanks again for watching, folks. Come on back next week. We'll have a video or something here for you to watch.